I mean, did anyone try to kill you or hurt you the whole time you were there?
Yeah. I mean, if you read my book, I've been in at least 20 different life or death fights inside there. You know, Did you remember in Blackbird when he's at the telephone?
Yeah.
And the big dude comes up behind him? In real life, there was 3 guys. They came up behind me. They started giving me jazz about the phone. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and my dad's like, son, you tell them people you're on the phone. I go, Dad, I'm in prison. You don't just turn around and tell people, hey, fuck you, get out of here. I'm talking to my dad. You know what I mean? And the guy kept getting loud like he did in Blackbird. And I told my dad, I said, this guy says one more thing, he's done. And he did. He said something again, and he was about this close, and I took the phone, I hit him right in the head, and you could tell he's seen stars. And I immediately took the other 2 out, knocked all 3 of them out, and they were laying there at the phone. And that's when I dropped the receiver. And I asked Dennis, I said, Dennis, why didn't you put that in there? He said, well, you know, it might be too violent for society. I go, hey, people want to see the real deal. They don't want this, you want the phone, be my guest. You know what I mean? It didn't go that way. Because you remember, that's what he said in there, right?
Yeah.
In Blackbird. You want the phone, be my guest. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I had a lot of major life or death fights in there. A lot.
Got it. Okay. But you're, getting closer to Larry Hall and you're having more and more conversations, and he starts actually admitting certain things about certain murders that he did along the way.
Yeah. It was a lot more detailed than that. We were in the TV room. You remember the TV room thing? Now that guy was a really big guy. He was 6'3" or 4", very big, muscular guy. They bring this little hillbilly dude in the show. I mean, the guy was a big monster in real life. And he had came in and he turned the TV, and they were all watching. Larry and all of his guys were watching America's Most Wanted. And it was a segment on serial killers, believe it or not. It was pretty weird, actually. And they were like just transfixed on this, like, oh my God, serial killer stuff. So this guy comes in, he turns the TV, and Hall mumbled to me. He didn't mumble to the guy. He goes, man, I was watching that. And I go, yeah, I was too. So I figured this was a right opportunity to get kind of more in his good graces. So I went up there, and I turned the TV back. Dude jumped up, started cussing at me, telling me he's going to knock my head off and all this and that. He turned the TV again. So I got up and I turned the TV again. We started having a little verbal argument, and he took 2 wild swings at me. In Blackbird, he hits the guy first. No, the guy took 2 wild swings at me first. And I took this guy out in 2 seconds. I mean, I'd hit him with an uppercut and then jumped up, kicked him through about 5 rows of chairs, landed on him. And then it was pretty realistic, just pounded him into the ground, right? Well, after that, Larry felt like he was protected by me. And he clung to me after that. So we were buddying it up, so to speak, getting a little closer. And I come walking out of the chow hall a couple of days later, and these big-ass dudes, about 5 of them, big muscular guys, come up to me and they go, hey, the old man wants to talk to you right now. You got to go right now. I'm like, what the fuck you mean, the old man? So they hustle me down this dark corridor in there, right? And this is where people do get stabbed and problems happen, especially in them days. You didn't have cameras everywhere like they do now. They don't even really have a lot of cameras in some areas now still, So anyways, they hustle me down the hallway, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't see a shank on any of these guys, so I think I can take these guys all out if I have to, And I get down there, and there's this little old guy, and it was Vincent the Chin Gigante. Mm. And the Chin goes, hey, boy, what are you doing talking to them baby killers? You don't hang around with them no more after today. After today, you hang with me and my people. He grabs me by the chin. He goes, you're an Italian boy, aren't you? You stay with us. You don't go with them. You stay with us. He goes, somebody come up, put a knife in your back. Meaning the good guys, my guys, come up and put a knife in your back, like if you keep hanging around with them. So that really put a big fly in the ointment, so to speak, between me being able to get to Larry now. Because the next morning I had to come down, and there's his little crew and him sitting over there, and I had to sit with the mobsters now, which is fine. I didn't mind that, but I still was on a mission. You know what I mean? So I laid in my cell for night after night, and I thought, how can I get this guy to open up? And I remembered when he used to go to the library all the time, he would read the Wabash Plain Dealer. That's the local hometown paper that he was from. My mom was from a little town in Illinois right on the Indiana border called Momence, right there. And that paper could conceivably be got by her little town, right? So I come up with this plan that I'm going to approach him in the library tomorrow, which I did. I walked up and I sat down. I go, "Hey, Larry, man," I said, "I thought you and me were supposed to be friends." "Oh, we are, James." He only called me James, by the way. That was all he ever called me. "We are, James. Why do you say that?" And I go, my mom gets this hometown paper you read every day. And I said, and the paper has all these stories about you murdering girls. And my mom told me, "Don't you know who that guy is? He's a murderer." Because I was telling her you were my new friend in here. And he got really paranoid that he thought he was going to lose my friendship. And that's when he said, he goes, "It's not like they say, James. They make it seem like I just pounce on these women and kill them. But they really liked me. They really did. They were my girlfriends." And then he started opening up, kind of like you've seen with Taryn and him in the first scene of him opening up. I think I want to say it was episode 3 maybe, where he opens up and you can see the pain in Taryn's face having to try to take this conversation, you know what I mean? So he opened up a little bit there and started telling me stuff, and it basically kind of snowballed from there. I would get more and more and more. Now, remember something also, Vlad, it wasn't just 2 girls. I got confessions out of him on about 20 girls. So this is a lot of stuff I got on him. And, you see a lot of these write-ups in the papers. "Oh, he was supposed to get the bodies. He blew his cover with the map and all that." That's not true either. These people write stuff that they don't even know what they're writing most of the time, The primary goal was to keep him in. That was the primary goal of the mission. Secondary was, if we can find any of the bodies, that's icing on the cake. And they really wanted to find Trisha Reitler for sure. We had already found Jessica Roach, so they wanted to find Trisha Reitler. But if he gets out, it doesn't do you any good, even if you haven't found her then, because now he's back out to kill again. So we have to stop him from getting out was first. So that was my goal first, was to get all these confessions on him. And I got tons on him, in detailed confessions, stuff you can't even fathom some of the stuff he would come up with. How he concocted acid cocktails that he learned by working in the cemetery, how he would concoct these acid cocktails when he buried the girls that would dissolve them. You'll never find nothing in the ground. You'll just find DNA. You're not going to, people think, "Oh, if you could find the burial spots." You got a misnomer going on there. You're thinking of a cemetery with a perfect 6x4 hole, dug out squarely, These are little graves that are maybe 2 or 3 feet long and 2 feet wide, and he's got them stuffed in bags, drowned in all these acid stuff, and he puts them in these holes and drowns them in acid, and you don't find them for years. You're not going to find nothing but DNA in the soil. So try to find X marks the spot in a 400-mile forest. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But then at one point, he actually drew a map that showed where he was basically burying the bodies, or whatever was left of the remains.
Correct. So the map was, I had 6 months of confessions out of him. So he was already nailed to the cross. We had him. I mean, he was already had. And if you see at the end of Blackbird, when he comes back in for his appeal, the judge says, the petitioner, now in court, once he files a appeal, he becomes the petitioner. So new evidence that was found out about the petitioner within the scope of the investigation clearly shows that the killer knew things that only the killer could have known about. That was true. She was right, how she stated all that. That is exactly right. Because the things he told me, there's no way anybody else could know. And we found out certain memorabilia things too, were like, a girl's driver's license, a stationery, a hairpiece, shoes, whatever, and he could tell you where those were at. So he had to have some kind of contact with the girls to be able to do that, So this whole thing, when you came in and he had the map, the Falcons I thought were more important than the maps, because the Falcons were his spiritual connection to the girls. That's why he was making those Falcons. He was going to have them sent home, and he was going to later give his brother, the twin, coordinates to where they were exactly. And he had a map. Now here you got a map with a 300 or 400 mile forest, right? And there's a red dot in front of the map. Oh boy, so we get the map, let's say. What's that going to tell you still? There's a girl in that 300 or 400-mile forest. How are you going to find X marks the spot? I have sat down with FBI, CSI professionals, tons of them, and they're like, look, Jimmy, there's no way you're going to find them. There's just no way. And if you find them, you have to find DNA in the soil because there's not going to be anything left. Everybody thinks you're going to find this perfect corpse in a little coffin and all that. That's not how it works, So, yeah, I came in. He had the map. He had all the falcons. I walked up and I picked one of them up. And when I picked it up, I said, wow, this is pretty cool. I said, what is it? And he named the falcon. And for the life of me, I've never been able to remember the exact name of that falcon. But he says, they're the falcons that watch over people's spirits in the afterlife until I join them in my afterlife. He really thought that these girls were like, how, in certain cultures, they believe that if you kill yourself, you have these virgins waiting in the afterlife. He really thinks that these girls are waiting for him in the afterlife. He really thinks this. This guy's nuts. I mean, he's a split personality if I've ever seen one, for real, So we got to talking about, he rolled the map up fairly quick, and we got to talking about the falcons and their meaning and what they meant and all that. And, unlike what happened in the show and unlike what I've heard written in articles, they act like I pounced on him right at that moment. No, I left out of the wood shop, went to the FBI girl, and I called her. I said, hey, you're not going to believe what I've got now. In addition to the last 6 months of stuff, you're not going to believe what I've got now. He's got a map with red dots all over certain burial locations. That's not specific, but it gives you a good general location. And he's got all these falcons he claims watches over the dead. Normally she answered every time, so I don't know what happened. But anyways, I left her a message, went back to my cell, and 3-4 hours later, they're getting ready to do lockdown. And I just thought to myself, I thought, you know what? This isn't blowing your cover like they try and make it sound so dramatic in these stupid articles when they write articles. I had a point where, you know what? I'm a pretty smart guy. I know we've got this guy nailed to the cross already with these 6 months of investigation already. He's now got a map we know he's sending home. He's given us this spiritual meaning of these falcons. I'm going to go over here, and my goal was to provoke him into a fight with me, because I'd almost feel bad beating him up because it wouldn't even have been fair. You know what I mean? I would have murdered that dude. So I went across the hall to his cell, and he was sitting in there, and he had the light. He had a cover over the light, so it was kind of dimmer in there. And he had tennis balls on the bottom of his chairs, which is a special treatment thing you can get after you've been in there a while. Because most chairs, when you slide them, his was slide with the tennis balls. So I came in and I said, hey, Larry. And he goes, hey, James, what's going on, man? I said, yeah, man. I said, I'm going home tomorrow, man. He goes, going home? I thought you got 40 years. The FBI's deal with me was they'd have me out in 24 hours. That's in writing. I call you, you get me out of here. Out. You know what I mean? So when I said that to him, he goes, what do you mean? I go, dude, I want to tell you something. I think you're one of the most despicable forms of human life on this planet, man. You're a sick-in-the-head fucking monster. And Taron, I give him credit. His acting was great. He laid it out in depth, really emotional. You fucking monster. The way he did it, You sick, demented monster. That's what it was. So I went off on him. I read him the riot act, and he slid on his chair with the little tennis balls away from me, and he hit the wall because there's nowhere to go in these little cells. And he goes, oh, Beaumont sent you, didn't he? Beaumont sent you, didn't he? And I just glared at him. I'm not going to tell him yes or no. I go, all I know, dude, is you're fucked and you're never going to win your appeal, and I'm going home tomorrow. And then you could hear the bells going for lockdown and stuff, and I left out of his cell. Probably about 4 a.m, I'm sleeping, and I'm happy. I'm going home tomorrow. I'm out of this shit. Finally, this nightmare is over, on a hearsay drug case of basically nothing, to put a guy through all this living hell for a hearsay drug case. There is no parallel between the two cases, Like I said, you see some of these articles and they're written up, alleged serial killer, suspected serial killer. You left out the part about being a convicted kidnapper that resulted in death. You left that part out conveniently, but Jimmy's a convicted drug dealer. No, Jimmy was convicted, but it was overturned and he was completely cleared of everything. You forgot that part too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, so the next morning, about 4 a.m, all of a sudden my cell opens up, man. About 10 guards come flying in, and here comes his little psychiatrist chick, who was actually a cute woman. Actually, she was short, long, dark hair, had her little white doctor smock on. She walks in, she goes, "I want to know who you are. Who are you?" I go, "You can read my file, because you got to have your file posted on the locker in your cell, right? You can read my file right there." She goes, "No, I want to know who you're working for. Are you with the FBI? What are you doing here?" She told the guards, "Take him and throw him in the hole until I can find out who he is." And that's how they took me and threw me in the hole. Which, if you've seen in Blackbird in that episode, you seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they take Taron down and take him to the hole, that's me that does that. Did you notice that? That's really...
Yeah, you had a little cameo at the end there.
Yeah, I shot in there, did some wrestling stuff, picked him up, took him off to the hole then, yeah.